My name is Kimberly Sanchez, and this is my week 2 discussion regarding the classics. So for Wilson, my favorite line was a comment that he actually quoted from Blackstone, and it was regarding like corporations having their own bodies and like wanting to kick them and like them being damned and all sorts of stuff, which I think is like really interesting in the context of our like common age where like a whole corporation can back a political person, and then there's no like there's like the checks and balances within that is like a very skewed system and something that I don't understand, sadly. But I just thought it was on page 36, chapter 5, the study of administration, in section 1, and it was just like a very interesting concept to think about, like that they were lamenting about the 16th century monopolies when they hadn't even encountered the 19th century monopolies, and now here we are in like the 21st century and we still have like the same issues where if corporations could be kicked and damned and all sorts of stuff, they probably would be, considering how many lawsuits abound the world. So for my Weber quote, that one was in chapter 10, Bureaucracy, section 3, page 63. I found this one really important because it's about the distinction that it is needed for there to be a distinction between your private life and your public life, and then the public money and materials in like difference from your private possessions. Because in our modern day, there's so many times where like people get kickbacks from certain companies and they don't actually report it, or even just like embezzling certain things. And so then that idea that this issue or this problem has been thought about even from the beginning of public administration. It's so interesting. It's kind of disappointing to really think about it, but it's like the ever changing, like we will never get rid of the evil in the world, but we can always try to fight against it. And I think it's very important to like think about this concept that it isn't something like a lot of people like were like, oh well, you have no right to dictate what I keep private or what I keep public. But it when it comes to public funds, it's like openness is key, and making sure that you are accounting for everything that you are like given. It's very important to like public like sectors, and like making sure that the money isn't being used for the wrong reasons, and then litigating the people who do this is also a very big point of contention, especially in the educational field. And that's something that I just thought was like super important and like super interesting to be like, even back then they had the same issues. Taylor is the next one. Taylor was a specific like his line that I thought was like really eye opening was because it was regarding like personal growth and then finding where people hit their niche. And something sometimes like there's like a lot of times where finding people like the right place is more important than kind of just having them there. And so it's not just about like being an employee, it's about finding what you're best at within that actual field. For public administration, because we are government employees, there's so much where if if you are not doing like well in the job that you are in, then let's try to find where else you can do it, because we want to use these funds, these like like we want to help as many people as possible, and then making sure that you are doing the best you can is also a part of that. And so I think that idea where he's talking about management like deliberately studying the character, the nature and performance of like each person is like, and like finding their limits is, it's like a very important. It's on page 57, and it was in chapter 8 in the scientific management introduction. And it's just something that even like today, like I've gotten help from my own boss where she was like, what are your goals in the future, what do you want to do? Or if I was having a hard time, we would go over like, okay, like how can we help you, like what is happening, what is causing you stress. And those are very like important concepts even in the beginning to now of public administration. I had two quotes that I liked from Foyet, and one of them was specifically about how dictatorships within public administration is not a good way to kind of go about things, and that if your supervisor is like telling you to do something without any like kind of like question, like you cannot, like just obedience, there's always like it's a bad business policy within the grand scheme of public administration. Because mostly when it comes to like checks and balances within our public administration, like we are a public entity, and so then there should be checks and balances. There should not be a tyranny when it comes from like doing things within our scope. The line that I really enjoyed from that one was on page 74 in chapter 12, the giving of orders in the introduction. Another point that I really liked from Foyet was about the line where it was talking about the trade union person, where as a young boy he would see his like father like being angry at the supervisor, and so in his mind that is like the actual like relationship, that how it's supposed to be. And so this one is page 76 in chapter 12, also in the introduction for the giving of orders. But it's just that idea that like whatever you see as a child, you're going to take back with you. You're going to take it to heart. And it's just so crazy to think about how even back then, this was a very like, it was just like, that's how things were. And it's so interesting to think about even today, that the man is always putting us down. But, you know, like public administration, we can't have, like, we need to have more diverse like discussion and all those sorts of things.